Why does the black man serve the white man? Why does everything the black man do benefit the white man? Why does the black man say freedom is doing what I want to do? And why is it that everything he wants to do enriches the European?
Welcome to the desert of the real.
You know, you talked about going ahead the connection to Africa. What can you tell us about Africa? Because some people don't seem to go ahead and get it. You know what's going on. A lot of individuals seem to go ahead and think that they read a few books and they can tell you what's going on over there. So you visited the continent. How often do you visit, and what do you see as some of the bigger opportunities in Africa for the black man, the African born in America?
Yeah, from 2006, when I made my first trip to the Nile Valley, until 2014, when my most recent trip was to Nairobi, Kenya, I've had the opportunity to visit the continent some 6 times and spend a total of, I would say, about 4 months during those 6 trips on the continent. And, of course, I research the continent every day. You cannot be examining global economic development and not see that Africa increasingly is playing a greater and greater role in the world. The best news that I have to relate to people about what is happening in Africa is really kind of constituted within 2 words: Africa rising. It's a tremendous phenomenon. It is a historical phenomenon, and it is closing out a chapter of African history that has lasted some 400 to 500 years and even more. That Africa is the part of the planet with the fastest rising economic growth of any region on the planet, expected to have a continental-wide 3.7 to 4.3% GDP growth over the coming year. South Asia is expected to be second, and then Latin America and other parts of the planet, with actually Europe and America only expected to grow over the course of the next years by less than or slightly more than 2% growth. And as we can see by the first 2 weeks of economic news from the European Union, from America, as well as from China, even that growth now is becoming extremely suspect. But meanwhile, and Ethiopia currently has the 3rd fastest growing economy in the world. The Democratic Republic of the Congo, which for the last 3 decades has been mired in one of the most devastating civil war and internal or internecine conflict that the world has known. Well, the Democratic Republic of the Congo ever so quietly emerged from that period of chaos and now has the 7th fastest growing economy in the world and will probably become the 6th fastest growing economy in the world this year. So there's great reason for us to be excited. If we are truly Pan-African, then we're going to have to start doing a little bit more work about being well-researched and well-informed on Pan-African economics. The good news, Africa rising. The bad news, America is not rising. It's not necessarily sinking right now, but it's in danger of starting to sink real quickly. And the worst news is that if America is a sinking Titanic, African Americans are the ones locked in the lower decks and will drown first.
What's aiding this growth? What's pushing it up? What's making these economies grow so much?
Very, very good question. Very good question. And I'm going to give you 6 points. There are 6 foundations that have always historically made for expanding empires. I call this the 6 foundations of empire. Number 1, demographics, the growth of population. When people have lots of babies, they have a young population with a young workforce. They tend to then grasp more of their natural resources for their own development. And currently on the planet, the African continent enjoys what all scientists and anthropologists and economists call the demographic advantage. Look at the way China has risen to become the 2nd largest economy in the world. Look at India rapidly rising to become the third largest economy in the world, overtaking the European Union in the next quarter of a century. Demographics, the number of people. The good news, Africa, positive demographics. Bad news, African Americans, we have negative population growth, and we are now an aging population, so that hurts. So, two is the ability to grasp natural resources from your own geographical area and turn those natural resources into finished products. So, as you can tell, our people on this side don't really have that advantage. The African continent, as everyone knows, has the greatest untapped base of natural resources of any part of the planet. Just the Congo alone is anticipated to having some $23 trillion of untapped natural mineral resources. So that's number two. Number three is the ability to turn those natural resources, finished products, into an internal trade that supports the growth and development and the education or the employment of our own people. And Afri-Amers, as much as is bragged about, $1.1 trillion annually in discretionary spending, we spend $1.1 trillion, but if you calculate what the number of black-owned businesses at about 2,500 or so, I'm going to have to get my figures straight here, about 2,500, no, more than 2,500. I have to get to the actual number. No, it's 2.5 million black-owned businesses, but they only generate $80,000 apiece, and so therefore, when you calculate the amount of money that black-owned businesses create, it's only $182 billion. So we spend $1.1 trillion, but we only use $182 billion. That means the deficit there means we are actually wage slaves. So that's number three, the ability to take your natural resources, make products, and sell them in internal trade. Number four, the ability to have surplus for external trade. This brings in wealth to the group and allows the group then to grow towards empire. Number five is the ability to secure all of this. We've now created products and industries. We've now created internal trade. Now we have a surplus. We have a world trade, a global trade. But if we cannot secure it, then we do not build empire. And then number six of the six foundations of empire is the ability to educate our own children to assume control of and management of and perpetuation of our own system that has led us now to be a global power. Any nation or any group of people that can consolidate all six of those foundations of empire are on the rise. The African continent right now is enjoying all six of those. Afri-Amers, unfortunately, or is the term I use for Africans in America, Afri-Amers are not enjoying any of those six. And so therefore, history would say that we are on our way out unless we decide to become functionally Pan-African, and then like Chinese people in America who are attached to a powerful Chinese empirical state, and Indians in America are attached to India, Koreans in America are attached to Korea, Europeans in America are attached to Europe. Once we attach ourselves to the rising star called Africa, we're going to start to look a lot better.
You know, what can we do right now to go ahead and to achieve this goal? Because I want to ask you about this nationhood. I want to ask you about nationhood and nation building. But then there's the other side of that. You know, hey, we can build that nation right here. So what can we do right now to go ahead and try to tap into some of those natural resources?
I'm going to use, I could probably list 12 different things that we could do immediately. I'm going to just give you three. Number one
give me
is...
12. Don't hold back on me, brother. Come on. I heard you before.
Yeah. Number one would be to inform and educate. The same way that people listening to this conversation right now perhaps had no consciousness or awareness that the Democratic Republic of the Congo is the hottest economy to be on this planet for the next 50 years. They may not be aware that there was just recently an agreement in the 15-member West African bloc of countries called ECOWAS for them to consolidate their solidarity so that their population can move freely within the borders. And, of course, that ultimately means that labor will be moving around through the ECOWAS bloc. And, therefore, that's the beginning of a federated state where 15 West African nations are going to sign an agreement within the next 35 years that makes them one national bloc. The East African community, consisting of Kenya, Rwanda, Burundi, Uganda, and Tanzania, is expected to sign a federation agreement within 5 years. So they're even more advanced along that aim of United States of Africa. So, number one, the first thing to do is to get educated and informed. Number two, the second thing to do is we're going to do a much better job of commanding our own economic reality, our own economic destiny. As much as we say we want to empower ourselves with our money, as much as we said during the last few months about boycotting Christmas, the reality speaks otherwise. According to the research I'm put together, and we don't have the final confirmation on this, even though the information is coming out stronger and stronger, it's most likely that Afri-Amers just spent an additional surplus of $49.7 billion for holiday shopping expenses.
Wait a minute. That's crazy, man. I see it like this. It's like it's a thing where I see it like we're aiding in our own destruction, and we have no problems doing it.
You're right. And the thing about it is we're doing this unconsciously, not realizing we have been programmed through all the mechanisms in America that programs its citizens to behave certain ways. We have been programmed. And we have elevated and maintained a cadre of leadership that is unfortunately not good enough to stop us from doing stuff like this. Now, this $49.7 billion, in 2014, the number was about $40 billion. That same year, in 2014, the nation of China invested $40.7 billion in infrastructure development projects across the African continent. Most of their deals were trading, development, and construction engineering for resources. Just a straight will trade development for you put your natural resources on boats and send them to China. And China was, of course, the industrial powerhouse of the world in 2014. The exact same figure that we spent that year on Christmas shopping, China spent across African development. They received a 5-to-1 return on their investment, over $210 billion of trade across Africa, overtaking the United States as Africa's greatest trading partner. We spent that same amount of money on holiday shopping, and much of what we spent our money on was made in China with African natural resources.
I was about to say that most of the money that we spent, we spent on stuff made in China, and like I said, aiding in our own destruction willingly.
That's right.
And I just don't get it. It's like we got these special blinders on, and we only see to go ahead and, hey, whatever you got, we're going to go ahead and deal with this fantasy and materialism, and nothing else can go ahead and interfere with that. You don't want to deal with reality. Want to go ahead and buy the latest this, latest that. And I'm saying to myself, man, like, look, you got kids and stuff and bills to pay. That don't make no sense. But you rather go ahead and buy.
Well, the beautiful thing about it is, if people keep listening to programs just like this one, they will be getting the right empowering information. Beyond that, then the people have got to act. They've got to get into some sort of structured organization. Again, we begin by informing and educating, and then we've got to take control of the capital, the investment capital. Our people are investing their money right now, but they're investing it in car loans, housing loans. They're investing it in clothes, alcohol, hair, beauty products. The amount of money, and it's not as a put down to my sisters. We do the best we can to always put up our sisters. but just the amount of money that is spent on personal care in the United States by people of African heritage is enough to buy 3 grocery store chains every year.
Yeah.
Now, their grocery store chains come up for sale every year or two. We were talking about Fresh and Easy closing some 200 stores in 2013, and I was telling our people we could probably buy those 200 stores for about, they ended up being sold for, I think, about $3 billion. And the company that sold them, the British firm, was not Tesla. Tesla is another. I'll think of the name later. But the British firm that sold Fresh and Easy actually put $176 million up for the buyers in operating cash to get the thing going again. We could have bought A&P stores. They shuttered 25 of their stores the last year. And those stores were available for $1.9 million apiece, which means we could have bought the whole lot of 25 already established grocery stores for less than $50 million. So we are not in a powerless position. I say our chief complaint is we've got bad leadership, and most of us don't recognize bad leadership. We don't even recognize that it is so bad.
I got another brother on the line. Your line is open, 347.
Peace, this is Holip.
How you doing, brother?
How you doing, brother?
Hey, we black and we shine. Tell me your name again one more time. Was it Holip?
Holip, Holip, Mr. Holipsism on YouTube.
Oh, what a great name. It's a pleasure to meet you, my brother.
How you doing, brother?
We black and we shine.
Yes, indeed. I want to ask you a question about the concept of an African American fund, because that was introduced by Afrikan at the first Million Man March, and actually it was introduced by Elijah Muhammad before that. But I want to know and this is sort of like me throwing you an alley-oop, but, I got to do it. Why is it that the established black leadership has not endorsed the concept of an African American fund with transparency and accountability?
Mm-hmm. The thing is that they have actually thrown the idea out over numerous times. There was a time when Mr. Farrakhan had launched the 3-year program for economic development. That was, 21 years ago. There have been a number of attempts to do so. Of course, even the Garvey organization was doing fundraising and selling bonds. I think it's a great idea. Now we have to ask the question, what is the best way in the current markets to do so? And according to my analysis, it would be to launch a quote-unquote private equity fund. Now, I recently did a month-long series of broadcasts. I focus on one theme 2 hours a day for an entire month. We did a month called Reparations for Real this time. And by the end of the month, we concluded the best way to finance the reparations in the 9 categories that we choose to repair using our own resources would be to launch a private equity fund and to sell bonds to build this private equity fund up. And it's a really good idea. Most people don't know. And I was just researching this. I do a daily business news roundup. I was just researching this just in the last day because I got in an online debate with a couple of brothers, and I say, heck with the financial markets. We need to build our own private equity fund. Most people don't know, and this is just reported, brand new news, of the top 30 of 300 equity funds in the country. The top performer is Vista Equity Partners. And most people don't know that Vista Equity Partners was founded and is chaired by Robert Smith, a black man, the richest black man in America. Most of us don't even know his name. But we should. And we should be looking at this idea of a private equity fund. It's not going to be that difficult to launch and to start, but it's got to be systematically done because it's going to have to pass the Securities and Exchange Commission monitoring. But, we've already got the best performing equity fund in America. It's headed by a black man. He's not necessarily interested in reparations, but I think that you and I should be.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing that it has to have, because our people have had their hearts broken so many times and been screwed over so much, is the transparency, so that people can see where, how much that, money is going into the fund and how those funds are being allocated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Are you familiar with how private equity funds work?
Not exactly.
Yeah. The word equity is key here. The word equity in financial markets means when you take your company's assets and your company's debts, you subtract the debts or obligations from the assets, and what is left over is called equity. So with a private equity fund, once the fund is raised, the money is used to buy real things. And I emphasize that word real. It's not speculative. This is real. And done the right way, we could probably start off with a position. And I was talking about this 3 months before Christmas. So I said, instead of boycotting Christmas, instead of allowing our people for unconscious consuming, we should do what our parents used to do when I was young. For Christmas present, my daddy would buy us a $25 U.S. savings bond. And that bond would mature over the course of 4 years or so. He'd probably buy it for $17, $16, and it would be worth $25 when it matured. Well, we could get back to that. And in purchasing, say, a $25 reparations private equity fund bond, the bond could have a maturation rate, could be 10-year maturation rate. Because these are equity investments, they're invested in real things. And we can find enough real things around the planet to invest in. Right now, most people are unaware that the powerful corporation that has dominated Africa for 100 years, the Anglo-American establishment, or the Anglo-American corporation based in South Africa, about 3 months ago, they fell on bad luck because of the global commodities downturn, and they now are being forced to liquidate 60% of their holdings and lay off 67% of their workforce of 135,000 people. 85,000 people will lose their jobs. They've also got a lot of very heavy mining equipment and refining equipment on the African continent. We could have purchased probably all of that had we only had the leadership that would have directed us out of Christmas. Now, commodities, including the industrial minerals, are down right now, and they're going to be down until this cycle plays itself out. But we could have bought that, just put it in a hold position to sit on it, or better than that, move our engineers to the continent to take what we are now mining and move that into refining of these products into finished products and export them around the world. We could have had a major stake and upgraded our economic status on this planet, probably doubled it in the next 10 years. And we just had the type of leadership that could have said, here's the right move to make, and here's the time period in which it's going to take for this to complete itself.